Yeah, I wasn't joking last time. I literally use this Christmas mug every single day. Hey guys, so today's video comes to you in two parts. Part 1, an update. As some of you might know, I'm a speech pathology student at university and I'm finally in my last year. So while that's both exciting and terrifying, it also means that I have two gigantic pracs coming up. They run for 5 days a week and they're 5 weeks each, so essentially it's like I'm working full time without getting paid for any of it. The first one of these pracs starts on August 18th and runs all the way through to the end of September, and I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen during that time. I could be really super busy all the time and have no time to read, let alone make videos, or theoretically I could also be sharing an apartment with someone who might not enjoy me chatting away to myself at all hours of the day. Or because I'll be living by myself a couple of hours away from home, I might be bored to tears and have loads of time to read and to upload. So I'm going to be even more unpredictable than usual up here for a little while, essentially until the end of the year, because I've only got 3 weeks in between my 2 big blocks of pracs. So I'm going to prematurely say thank you for sticking with me. It still boggles my mind that anyone wants to watch the nonsense that comes out of my face, let alone like 900 someone's. That's a lot of people, guys. That's a stressful number of people. So thank you all for being so awesome. And part 2, I have a wrap up for you. This is probably going to sound a little bit convoluted, but I haven't done a proper wrap up since about halfway through June, so I want to show you all the books that I've read since then. Since that wrap up though, I did do the 30-day read and I made 2 update videos for the books I read during that time period. So if you want to see what I read between June 17th and July 16th, I will leave those 2 videos down below, and today I'll just show you the books that I read outside of that time period, which is only a handful. So the first book that I read was Cirque by Divergent. I read this in one sitting the day before the 30-day read started, which really in hindsight was probably a mistake. Like I could have just waited one day and have it count for the challenge, but anyway. The series is apparently really popular, but this is the first time that I picked up this book. I guess it's sort of middle grade horror, kind of. I don't want to give away the plot, but I can say that I was genuinely on the edge of my seat reading this, and looking back, I don't know why. Like, it's really not scary at all. But the author does this amazing job of cultivating this really tense environment, and I can guarantee if I was like a 10 or 12-year-old, I would be terrified by this book. So yeah, I was genuinely freaked out by a children's book, which is kind of embarrassing. I will say though, it's definitely not for the arachnophobic, if you can't tell by this really creepy like glow-in-the-dark spider in front. Yeah, if you're afraid of spiders, I would not recommend this book. Yeah, in the end I really enjoyed this book. I mean, it's tiny, it took me like 2 hours to read. I think it was definitely worth it. I think it's a pretty long series though, there might be 8 or 9 books, and I'm not that keen to read through that many more of them, but I mean, if I find them, I'll probably read them. I've been saying that a lot lately, haven't I? So between my last wrap up and the start of the 30-day read, Cirque was all that I read, and at the end of the challenge I was about halfway through 7 Little Australians by Ethel Turner. I think I was about 80 pages into this one, and I read the rest of it in one big sitting, like I said I probably would in that update video. Without spoiling it, I actually sobbed at the end of this book, which I was not expecting at all. But the writing style was just so beautiful, and the descriptions of the environment and the family were just so perfect, and yeah, I think I broke a little. It was also fun that the book was set in places that I know, like my city was mentioned in this. That never ever happens in anything. And it was kind of cute to know that a place where I holidayed last year, Judy was meant to have visited like 130 years ago. The best way I can describe it is it's got that lovely writing and the feel of the Anne series by L.M. Montgomery, but in places and in an environment that I know and I love, and that just made me love it all the more. The next book I finished is one of those ones where it seems like everyone else on BookTube has already read this one. It was Divergent by Veronica Roth. Last month I caved and finally bought an Audible subscription, so I listened to this one on audiobook, so I don't have a physical copy of the book to show you, which is kind of a shame because this cover is so stunningly beautiful, but I have a little tiny one you could look at. Ooh. See, it's still pretty in miniature, which I think is a sign of a good cover. Separate from the audiobook, as far as the actual text went, nah. The plot about Triss's training and her relationship with Four and with her parents I thought was interesting and relatively well done, but I just couldn't get invested in it because none of the premise made sense to me. There was no real justification for the reason why society has just decided to split up into all these different factions. There was no reasonable explanation for why a whole population of an entire city would just agree to this. It wasn't realistic at all. I know you have to suspend disbelief a little bit with things like this. I feel like with the Hunger Games, it was pretty poorly done as well. But there was a much richer picture painted there, and with this one, you're provided with so little information about it, it was really difficult to buy into that as a realistic world. So while I really wanted to care about Triss, I just couldn't because there was no justification for why she was in this situation. I know that more of the plot apparently gets explained in Insurgent, but I think that's a sign of a really poorly handled series if I have to wait until the second book to get any background for the first book. I'm probably going to keep on with the series just because everyone is so nuts about it, but I'm going to wait until later in the year, until the release of the third book. After Divergent, I listened to another audiobook, The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. It's not actually in here because I gestured too much and it kept shaking around. Before you panic, don't worry, I've read it before. I read it in January last year when it first came out, so this one's essentially a reread for me. There are two versions of the audiobook, one read by a professional actress and this one which is read by John Green himself. He uploaded a couple of videos onto YouTube of him reading the first two chapters of the series, and I just think he has a really wonderful reading voice. I want to see how he'd go reading the entire novel. I also just think it's really interesting to have an author reading their own work rather than someone else interpreting it, and it was really unexpectedly touching to have him reading his own acknowledgements at the end of the book. I didn't have as strong of an emotional reaction to this as I did the first time I read through the book, although I did cry enough to impede my vision, and it led to me stabbing myself several times with a needle which I was trying to sew with as I listened. That was a really big mistake. I think in a way I had a closer emotional connection when I could control the pace myself and really read over those really heartbreaking bits again and again and slow it down a little bit and take my time when I was really trying to cling to the characters when I didn't want them to go. I think I'd probably recommend that new readers went for the physical book first, just because there's nothing like experiencing the story of Augustus and Hazel at your own pace. But this is a wonderfully produced audiobook and I think it's one that I'm definitely going to be revisiting multiple times. So those are the 4 books that I've read since my last wrap up that I want to sort of catch you guys up on. I've also started a third audiobook, which is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And me and this book, we have a complex relationship. I own 2 copies of the physical book, an ebook and an audiobook, and I've tried to read it like 4 or 5 separate times. I just have this block with this book that I don't understand. This book is my Everest. Last time I read it, I got up to about halfway through before completely losing interest, so I'm hoping to beat that record this time. I've heard so many people say that Wuthering Heights is their favourite book or their favourite classic. I just really hope for me that it's worth the struggle to get through it. Let me know down below if you like the book, if you think it's worth it, because I need some serious motivation. So those are the books that I've read and what I'm currently working on. I think I'm going to keep going with my thing of not setting a TBR. I've got a couple of books that I'd like to get through, but I think I'd rather avoid boxing myself in and forcing myself to read them in a certain order, because that's just not going to work. Thank you prematurely for sticking with me for the uncertain future. I'm hoping I'll be able to pop in at least a couple of times and make a couple of videos, because I'm still way behind on tags that I've got to do. But I'm not too sure. We'll see. We'll just cross fingers that I won't be run off my feet and I'll have time at least to sit back and read a little bit in the next couple of weeks. Alright, thanks so much for watching guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.